grown-up, the ones just minding their own business, to be in the midst of anything. And I just pray that, to God, that something can be done, or can be something to be settled, because it's heartbreaking, very heartbreaking. And I'm a very emotional person. And I just pray that something can be done. And I thank you all. Now I'm here to, express my concerns. And God bless you all. God be with you all. And thank you. That's all I can say.
If you don't mind, before you depart this evening, if you could leave your information so we can follow up with you, if you don't mind.
Yes.
Thank you. Do we have anybody else for public comment?
Yes, Bonnie Page.
My name is Bonnie Page. I reside at 709 Wilford Street, and my concerns are the activities that are going on that street. I'm gonna just put it blunt. It's drug activity. There's like loitering. Where I live, like directly across the street from me, there are people coming and parking and just congregating on the street. I have grandkids. My grandkids were here this weekend. I had to make them stay in the house because of the language. And then also, I'm afraid bullets could start flying because they're out there with guns, just like it's okay. And it's not. It's like I fear for my life. I fear for the life of my grandkids. And I just wanted to come here and express that, because if there's anything that can be done more than what's being done now, I would really love to see that, because right now it's just not conducive for a family life at all. Okay, my other concern is my house is the only house that does not have a driveway. Okay, so I have issues with parking. If I go to the store, then I got to worry about is a parking place going to be for me when I get back. I do have a handicap plaque, so I don't know if it would be possible if I could get, like the last parking place, get the spray handicap, whatever, on there, so that hopefully I'll be able to park. Because if I go to the store, I can't walk from way down the street with my groceries. That's like impossible for me to do. I have a bad back, I got a bad leg. I mean, the list goes on. So I think that is all that I have to say at this time. Okay?
Ms. Page, the city does have a policy around on-street handicap parking spaces. There's a simple one-page form. Would you mind if we can get that to you, just fill that out, and then we can do an analysis. What you're describing qualifies you for a handicap parking space. So would you mind, Trish will take your information, Ms. Newcomer, and I'll reach out.
You can give it to me tonight and I'll fill it out.
I got to get it. We don't get very many requests for them,
Okay.
but I can get it to you. I can reach out to you tomorrow, and I can get it to you tomorrow. Is that okay?
That's fine.
Okay.
That is fine. And thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have anybody else for public comment?
Yes, Reverend Tesha Miller.
Mayor, Council, I stand here. I live at 416 North Street in Seaford, Delaware. I also pastor 431 North Street, where Macedonia AME Church is. And so I'm here just to share the changes that have been going on in our community, where I find myself hearing our community talk about how many times do we have to have a gun activity on North Street or somewhere near us. If it's not every other month, it's every 6 months. And we find ourselves questioning whether or not there is a major effort to really resolve the drug issue that is in and on North Street, Wolford Street, in all that area. I've been pastoring the church for over 10 years, and I've seen some changes, and I think that is wonderful. But to hear that there is a person with a shotgun outside of my neighbor's home is definitely unacceptable to me. And I do see kids walk to school every day. It's definitely unacceptable to put our kids in harm's way and allow that to continue to happen. Also, when it comes to that on Sunday morning, this just past Sunday, I had to tell my congregation before I could walk in the doors of my church, there was a gentleman that was overdosing on my neighbor's property. They called here to the church because they saw me walking in and we happened to have Narcan. And I told the congregation, I wish there was a time we did not have to have that, where we did not have to. But also, my neighbor has an old RV. There's nothing going on with that RV, and it should not be parked there. There's an old shed. Those things should not be there where drugs can be hidden behind there and drug addicts can use them. That's where he was laying, under an old RV, passed out, hoping. I was hoping that he would survive, and he did, and he's still walking the street. He he had a conversation with somebody, a young man in red pants, dreadlocks, on Wolford and North Street, probably an hour and a half before I saw him on the ground. Can't say that he had a drug or someone sold him a drug, but he got the drugs from somewhere. And I think I would prefer not to walk in my church and have to deal with addicts every single day. Will we? Absolutely, because God has called us to do certain things. However, this does not happen in all of Seaford. This does not happen in certain areas of Seaford. Also, the late Henry Nutter has a park, and that park still allows people to go in there, and all they do is trash the park. Other parks are not trashed like that. And I think it's a disgrace to his legacy to allow that to continue to happen. I walked this morning, my dog, trash all over the park, diapers all over the park, addicts in the park in the morning, going into the drainage, trying to fish out something in the park. These things are happening every day. And I have talked to the chief, and I work with the chief, and I think he's doing a great job of trying his very best. But this council, and I believe this mayor, has to do something that is going to provide a permanent change. And I know probably my 3 minutes are up, but the last thing is most of them are renters. We have dealt with the same people that lived there for over 10 years do the same thing. When is it going to change? And usually the drug dealers go back to the same house and do the same thing year after year. And then you want to tell us that just wait a little while. We're working on it. Well, how long does it really take? Because you're not the ones with a shotgun outside your house. And you're not ones with the cops riding up and down your street every single day. And you're not the ones fearing. We are. And I think there needs to be something that can be considered and done for those of us that are dealing with this on a daily basis. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment?
Yes, Beatrice Parker.
They spoke very well. They told everything that really needs to be told. I'm the one seen the gun. I don't know what this thing was. It jammed. If it did not jam, those boys standing on that corner would have been gone. I ran in the house, but I watched everything. I spoke with the chief of police. He's done a lot in a little bit of time. I could commend him for that. I was in a meeting with him. But to be scared to go home when you get off work at 7 o'clock, I got to go home to a block party, blasting music. I work. And I said, I'm going to say this. I didn't want to say this, but I'm going to. If this was happening on the other side of town, if I took 20 of us, black African Americans, and stood in front of someone's house, how long would it take the police to get there to move us? Period. They wouldn't say I got to dot the I's and cross the T's. They wouldn't say that. They would arrest us. I don't know, somebody could come out their house and shoot us because they fearing for their life. I'm fearing for mine. Could I go out there and blow somebody away? without getting arrested? These people are carrying guns. We see the guns. We see the drug transactions. We seeing it all. And we shouldn't have to live like that either. You know, I'm tired. Why I have to move to get away from that? I shouldn't have to leave my house to get away from it. These people, and let me tell you about 331. Is that the street? That's the
What street do you live on?
332.
No, it's me.
Oh.
Sorry, you didn't say when you came up. What
I'm
street
sorry,
do you
I
live?
live on 332 North Street.
Okay.
And let me tell you, the house directly, there's two houses on the street across the street from me. One of the houses supposed to be convicted. It condemned. And it's not. Why? These are where all the people coming from. These are where all the drug dealers, the drug users are right there. Leon Waters owned the house. I told everything. Nothing's been done yet. That's been over a month ago. You know, I mean,
What was that address again?
331. Huh? No, that's somebody else's. Mind your business. This is my best friend. But I mean, I'm just saying. I mean, we just had to come, and we wanted to come on the 14th, but we was away. It's just we just need somebody to do something. I mean, I have seen a little change. I see the police riding more, which makes me feel better. But I literally watched this man get out his car. It was a SUV, and pull that thing, and that thing jammed. And he tried again, and that was nothing but God to save them about 10 boys standing on that corner. And then this ain't the hangout. That's not in front of our homes is not your hangout. They do not live there. They don't even live on the street. You got the girls coming like it's a party going on. We like, what the world? And that's all I got to say. So thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have anybody else for public comment?
No, sir.
All right. Do we have anything for correspondence?
No, sir, we do not.
Okay. Going to move on to new business number 1. I believe Mr. Sims is in the house.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So, unfortunately, the power supply cost for the electric is going up, and it's going to start on June 1st, so just in a couple days. That cost is going up for everybody that's in the Delmarva power zone, so that's everybody in Delaware, and it also includes some on the eastern shore of Maryland as well. Typically, there is a auction that occurs for capacity cost that's 3 years in advance of when you would actually need to use and pay for that capacity. That auction had an anomaly in the clearing price, and so PJM went to FERC, who's the regulatory body, and said, look, we saw some results that we did not expect to see, and it's in the DPL zone, our zone. And so they worked out a change in the rules in order to have a more reasonable clearing price for that capacity. And so that decision was held in place for several years, 2 years in fact, and it took the Third Court of Appeals, Circuit Court of Appeals, to actually overturn that decision by FERC. So it's effectively caught everybody off guard. So they are requiring now that the original clearing price from that auction be upheld and put into place starting June 1st. The difference in cost is about twice as much as what it would be for the typical generator in the DPL South zone specifically. And so that increase, when DMEC recalculated what the costs are going to be effectively for the rest of this year and then starting in 2025, the increase that is going to get into effect immediately, it's going from about $91.21 a megawatt hour up to $94.29 a megawatt hour, so about a $3 wholesale cost increase. And then they are anticipating, since that capacity has a full year impact, some of that impact is also going to be felt in the first part of 2025. So that revised figure for the DMEC rate will take it up an additional $3.70. So it's going to be up to $97.75 a megawatt hour for the wholesale cost. And so typically we wouldn't need to change the PCAC more than once every calendar year, because that is the DMEC fiscal year. When they set the rate at the end of December, when they have their meeting, that's typically the rate that would be able to be withheld in place for that full 12-month period. And so the rate that DMEC has quoted us for at least the rest of this year is known and quantifiable, and that's that $94.29. So if the city were not to, if we didn't adjust the PCAC, effectively we would be under collecting our power supply costs by almost $250,000 by the end of this year. And so there's two options that I'm presenting here today. If the city wants to attempt to keep the rates more stable for customers, then we can include in this PCA calculation what the anticipated increase is going to be in January of 25. That's the one that we're not 100% certain exactly what the cost will be next year, because DMEC doesn't purchase 100% of the power supply needs ahead of time, so there's always some that's floated at market, so there is some market risk of what the value could be in January of 25. But if the city wanted to set a rate today that utilizes their forecast for 25 as well as this increase that we know is happening in 24, then that's that first option that I presented, that I put together here, and that would be an increase of about $5.72 on a customer's, on a residential customer's 1,000 kilowatt hour bill, like per month, and so that's about 3.6% of their bill would be the increase necessary. And like I said, that should be, if DMEC is accurate in their forecast of what the cost will be in 25, that would mean we could keep this PCA through all the way through the end of 2025 and not have to change the PPC, not have to change it again until January of 26. So that's the first option. The other option would be to only change the PCAC enough to collect for this known increase that we're going to see starting in June. And that would be an increase of about $3.50 to a customer's bill, and it's a little over 2% of their bill. And then in January of 25, we're going to have to expect it's going to be at least likely another 2.5% increase roughly. So it'd be an additional $3.79 to customers. So that total increase, if we do it in two steps, then the total increase would be slightly more, because if we do one moderate increase today, then we would over collect power supply costs by a little bit throughout this year, but then that would be given back to customers throughout 2025. And so those are effectively the two options that we have. In terms of not making any adjustment, there's really unfortunately no basis or possibility for that, because if we don't change the PCAC now and we just wait until January 25, when we would normally relevelize it anyway, we're going to have already under-collected power supply costs by that $250,000, and that means that that next PCA that goes into place is going to have to include that increase on top, because the ordinance requires that we collect dollar for dollar our wholesale cost, and it's just the wholesale cost of power you know, we've seen it's been a significant increase over the last couple of years. I certainly understand that. But the only thing I'll point out is that the level that it's at now, this $94, is just $1 higher than what the peak was back in 2010. And so, yes, we have seen a large increase, but the wholesale rate, it's really just getting us back to where it was in 2010. It's just we've enjoyed the benefit of power supply costs did go down up and all the way until 2020 effectively, and that is the supply chains and the tensions overseas have just caused almost a parabolic spike in cost.
Can I ask a couple questions, please?
Yeah, no,
First-
go ahead.
First, Mike Bradley. First of all, when they made the court decision, did the increase retro back, or did it become effective with the court decision? Just out of curiosity.
So it's not retroactive from the standpoint of those capacity auctions are held 3 years in advance. And so they were setting the price that was going to start June 1st of '24 anyway.
Okay.
And so the decision was overturned, and I believe it was the end of February, so effectively call it March. So we haven't had a whole lot of time to react to it. Not only us, everybody that's in Delaware and the Eastern Shore of Maryland is getting this same increase in cost.
Now I've got a second question, okay? The increase for next year is hypothetical, correct? It could, I mean, if the economy shifts, that could even be higher. Odds are it's not gonna be lower, but it could be higher. So we could be in a situation where we're gonna zap our constituents again if we go with am I correct? If we go with a fixed number now to approve for next year? Because you're pulling a number out of air, more or less. I mean.
Well, the not entirely from the standpoint of the number was provided to us by DMEC, and they do pre-purchase a certain amount of power. So regardless of how the energy or the market price changes, DMEC does know, I don't know what percentage it is, but I'm assuming that since we're this close, the real last chance for them to buy any additional power would be this fall. So if we don't see any real marketable change in the cost between now and September, then it's likely that their number is very accurate. That's the only thing that gives me enough confidence that what they've provided to us should be very accurate. If it is going to be different, it shouldn't be much.
Yeah, but I mean, there is a possibility.
It could. It very well could.
And that's all I wanted to know. I just want to get my head around it.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Go ahead,
Councilman Quillen. Okay, we're anticipating another increase in January, okay? Let's look on the other side of that. What about if the rates go down? Okay, we have an election coming up. I look back on a graph that I looked at earlier, a bar graph there, where when a certain individual was in presidency, it was down. And then when another individual came up, it went back up. So that could change things, couldn't it?
It could. So what it would take is exactly what happened in 2008. It would take a recession, because these, like I said, these natural gas prices, which dictate the majority of our energy costs, which is 70% of your wholesale cost, is just purely energy. It's not even the capacity or the transmission cost. There are other costs associated with it, but the energy cost is effectively the fuel that we have to pay the generators to physically produce that power. And then there's transmission costs that cover all of the transmission lines to get it from them to us. There's a capacity cost saying if there's an emergency and we need them. So that's what those other costs are. But on the energy side, you know, we're seeing natural gas prices were, just as a couple months ago, they were basically 25-year lows. So to think that the cost of natural gas could effectively go down from where it's at to today, it's going to take, it would have to take a monumental shift in projected demand forward. And really, the only way to do that, to limit enough demand that it would have a significant impact on the price, is there would need to be a recession, and there would have to be a lot of businesses going out of business effectively to see those prices. And that's why we saw those decrease in prices, is because the demand has just not been there. And it's been replaced by renewable resources, where solar resources have effectively gotten to the point where the installation cost is equivalent to a natural gas plant. And so when your fuel is zero and it costs you the same amount of money to make it for a solar resource, that is also putting some downward pressure on price too. But there are so many moving pieces. In my opinion, the only thing that would cause the price to go down significantly from where it's at today is it would have to take a absolute collapse in demand from a recession.
Any more questions for Mr. Sims?
I have several,
Vice Mayor.
or a few, not several. Is the court case on appeal?
So this final decision is not on appeal.
Okay, so they've taken it, they're not going to take it up Supreme Court or
That was because the start of the delivery year was effectively 2 months or 3 months away from when they had made that decision. Is that PJM and FERC decided not to effectively push back against it. Now, they are making rule changes that will go into effect the following delivery year to avoid that situation. So this is just a one-off year specifically. It will not happen again because they're going to make adjustments for it. It's just to avoid making it retroactive, because that's something they can't do. It can only be applied to the following fiscal year for them.
Okay, I heard you mention that we would be returning, if we used option 1, we would be returning PCAC in the next year, FY26. But in that, we're not actually going to return it. It's just going to be smoothing, so we don't have to raise it again.
Well, that's right. We're going to be slightly over collecting what we're paying out to DMEC through the end of this year, and then we would be slightly under collecting each month in the following year. So that, right, the cost to customers should be levelized.
Yeah, I think that should be cleared up, because there are people who are listening to you saying, oh, we'll get it back. But actually, your bill is not going to be as much higher.
That's correct.
Right.
There's not going to be a physical credit.
So you're not getting anything back. You're
That's
not going
correct.
to get a minus on your power, your PCAC like we used to get. And the next thing would be maybe for the city manager, maybe for you, Mr. Sims. When does the NRG must-run decree end?
So they actually just had a court case in Maryland where that's the last contingency that they need to repair in order for them to be allowed to take their plane out of service. And they basically tried to put a rush on that plan, and DMEC even participated in that court hearing proceeding to encourage Maryland to approve of that upgrade. It's in Vienna, Maryland, is the location of the upgrade that needs to be done. And they did end up approving it. So it is possible, as long as there's no delays on the actual construction side, that it could be 1 year earlier. So the plan was for it to be out for 3 years. And so since it had started last year, it was going to go out to 2027, the end of 2026, so effectively to 2027. And now it may be 1 year earlier. It may be finished at the end of 25. So it could be in effect starting in 2026.
We've had a rate increase because of that, right? So if that gets resolved, we may see some relief at that point when this thing comes back online, or.
Could. Yes,
So,
I mean, that is right, and that the difficulty, though, of forecasting what the DMEC rate will be 2 years out becomes more difficult when, like I said, you buy smaller percentages the farther out the year is that you need to utilize that power. So it's the gas market and the energy market can change very quickly. As we've seen just in the month of May, I mean, the natural gas price went from about $1.60 to $2.70. So, you know, when you see a 40% increase in the fuel cost, that can play major implications in the price going forward.
so, one last question. At what point does purchasing or increasing alternative energies compete with the price of natural gas?
So that's what I was saying. Effectively today, if you're talking utility scale size, meaning for the city of Seaford, if Seaford wanted to add, you know, more than the you know, what's over at the wastewater treatment plant, well, for the wastewater treatment plant, if we were to add more power, effectively it costs the same as much as it would for an equivalent sized natural gas plant. And you get two additional benefits on the renewable side. One is you don't have any fuel cost. Two is you can actually resell the energy effectively twice, because you get the energy value and then you get a solar renewable energy credit, which is not an equivalent one-for-one in terms of the price, because as more and more percentage of our power is required to come from renewable resources, the states have lowered what the penalty rate would be if you don't actually buy that power physically from a renewable resource. And so they have that going down to about $20 a megawatt hour when you get to like 2030, and it sort of plateaus at that level.
I don't want to monopolize the time, but my thrust was, what if DMEC purchased it in the fall? I mean, would it be less if they purchased more or produced more renewable energy than purchasing natural gas?
So the cost of solar has come down. It is nowhere near as volatile or dependent on market conditions at this point in time as the energy is. And so the construction costs effectively in 2022 made their spike for all of the supply issues. So has resolved itself. I mean, unless there's some other black swan event that we don't have factored into the equation, the cost of the construction for both natural gas and really solar at this point, I don't expect it really to change much in several months, let alone even if we looked a year or two out.
Thank you.
Any more questions for Mr. Sims? Are there any further questions? I'll accept the motion.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve option 1 as presented by Mr. Chris Sims with Smart Utility Management to adjust the Power Cost Adjustment Clause, or the PCAC, to address the increase in wholesale electric rates and additional electric rate maintenance items as presented.
We have a motion from Vice Mayor Henderson. Do I hear a second?
I second the motion.
I have a second from Councilman Bradley. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? It passes unanimous. Thank you, Mr. Sims.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, and on to new business number 2.
So new business number 2 coincides with the presentation Mr. Sims just gave. So new business number 2, option 1, is the fee and rate schedule that coincides with the presentation that he gave. You'll see on page 2 of 8 That's the PCAC change to $0.01836 per kilowatt hour. And then we mentioned, and Mr. Sims didn't spend a lot of time on it, but the additional rate maintenance item is one minor item, and you'll see it there on page 1 of 8 in the MGS, or medium general service energy category of the electric utility rates. We're basically removing one of the rate blocks because it's not relevant anymore to those customers. So that's the minor rate maintenance adjustment, which is detailed in the fee and rate schedule.
Okay. Do we have any questions regarding new business number 2?
Yes,
Vice Mayor Henderson.
thank you. Could you, so you're just going to have the customer charge and then the demand charge for medium general service?
Go ahead.
Yeah, so effectively, the goal there is just to eliminate the minimum bill. And so the way that the billing system was set up initially is that it needed that first rate block to effectively equal the minimum bill when you added the customer charge to it. And so that's basically a remnant of before we instituted the customer charges. We started back in 2008. So we've been effectively increasing the customer charge enough to where we're collecting now enough fixed costs that nobody is getting caught up in the minimum bill, particularly for that class. And so that's why it's just more housekeeping. It's not going to affect any customers because all of them are using well north of the minimum bill.
But what is the normal charge, not the demand charge, for medium general service?
So they get a customer charge of $75 per month after this, and then their demand charge is all kilowatt hours. All KW is $12, but the kilowatt hour is a flat rate charge of $0.014900.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I
It's
was confused.
confusing,
I was
yep.
confused because that wasn't stricken through at the, okay, I got you.
Yeah, we wanted
I'm with
you to track the red line,
right,
so
thank
it
you.
is confusing.
Any more questions from council? Okay. Without any additional questions, I'll accept the motion.
Councilman Holland, Mr. Mayor, I make the motion to approve option 1 to the fee and rate schedule that will revise the power cost adjustment clause, PCAC, to address the increase in wholesale electric rates and additional electric rate maintenance items as presented.
Okay, we have a motion from Councilman Holland. Do I hear a second?
I second the motion.
We have a second from Councilman Bradley. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? It passed unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Sims. Before we move on to new business number 3, I just want to say, discussing rates, discussing raising rates is never a fun conversation to have. But we're dealing with this in real time. I think Mr. Sims did a good favor by explaining that these things are up and down. And we're, if he said $1 over from 2010. So these things can be moving up and down. I know some of us up here are optimistic about the future. Election coming up will impact that. But for what we're doing for right now, in real time, I think Mr. Sims gave a great presentation. And on new business number 3.
Thank you, Mayor. So tonight, we're presenting for a first reading changes to section 1529B and 1540 and 1540A, clause 5 of the municipal zoning code to restrict the sale of adult use cannabis facilities to C2 highway commercial zoning districts with a maximum of 2 locations. In your package, in your board pack, is the proposed zoning change. The building official has prepared this, and basically what you see are the changes to the code proposed. This is not a red line version. So I'll just walk through them real quick. Section 1529, uses by right, that is in a C1 general commercial district, and that prohibits adult use cannabis facilities. So if this code were adopted in the future, it would not permit the sale of recreational marijuana in C1 zoning districts. If you go on to Division 2, C2 Highway Commercial District, Section 1540A, it's uses by special exception. That would permit adult use retail marijuana stores pursuant to a valid license duly issued by the state of Delaware pursuant to Title IV Delaware Code Chapter 13, and removal of marijuana and its related derivatives from Schedule I designation at the federal level by the necessary act of the federal government. And then all facilities will be subject to the following requirements that are proposed. Adult use dispensaries in the city of Seaford must maintain a minimum distance of 2,000 feet from schools, libraries, public parks, child care centers, playgrounds, and pre-existing dispensaries. The exterior appearance of the structure must be consistent with the general architectural characteristics of the surrounding area. Hours of operation shall be limited from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Saturday, and no retail operations may take place on Sunday. Lighting shall be required such that it will illuminate the retail store and its immediate surrounding area, any accessory uses including storage area, parking lots, front facade, any adjoining public sidewalk. Lighting shall be hooded or oriented so as not to direct light away from the adjacent properties. The owner shall remove graffiti from the premises within 24 hours of occurrence. The owner shall provide for the removal of litter twice each day from the operation in front of the premises. The owner-operator shall ensure the absence of loitering. Talks about signs. Exterior signage shall be restricted to a single ground sign or wall sign no larger than 36 square feet, and a single tenant pylon sign in conformity with the style, character, and size of the existing pylon signage at the property. Content and graphics of all signage shall be in compliance with any applicable regulations issued by the state of Delaware regarding signage for retail marijuana establishments. No outdoor seating areas shall be permitted at an adult use retail marijuana store. The facility operator shall submit for approval a detailed security plan for the facility that shall include product storage and security, surveillance provisions, employment verification, on-site security guards, and other measures to be implemented by the operator. The facility shall fully comply with all of the requirements of the city of Seaford and the laws and regulations of the state of Delaware. No more than 2 state licensed adult use marijuana stores may operate within city limits. No on-site cannabis consumption shall be permitted. All facilities must be issued a license to operate by the city of Seaford annually, and this license shall be displayed at the facility. This is a first reading of this proposed ordinance, and because this is a change to the zoning ordinance, we'll need to have a public hearing on it. And we propose, I've talked with the code department, we propose that that can be advertised and be put on the docket for June 25th, 2024 at 7:05 p.m. We'll have the public hearing if council chooses to do that, and then we can put it on that evening for a second reading on the agenda, and then we can do adoption. The city could do adoption if they so choose at that time, or obviously the council has the authority to delay, table, based on the public hearing, public comment. I will try to answer any questions council might have.
Are there any questions from council?
Question.
Vice Mayor.
What are the rules for lighted signs?
Illuminated signs?
Yeah, some places have ordinances that they can't be blinking or flashing, or
We have
they
that.
have to be, if it's going to say open, it's just not.
So we do have some language in our zoning ordinance that talks about flashing and oscillating signage. And it directs the building official such that it can't cause traffic hazard or undue annoyance to the surrounding area. That discussion came forward 4 or 5 years ago when we adopted message boards, because that's the way they work. They change copy. So the code was modified at that time, and we have a standard for how bright that can be and how often that copy can change. Our Director of Economic Development is here, and she knows more about those signs because she controls and specified the one the city owns, if you have additional questions.
No, I just, I suppose there's a couple around town that are doing advertising, but the one that we have at the park is for public information, so.
I believe we comply with those same requirements.
What I would be, and this really doesn't have anything to do with adult use cannabis, it's just general mercantile that, you know, if you had a sign flashing into a neighborhood, into somebody's front window, that could be a problem.
And I will share that our code department has received several complaints about that. Specifically, there are a few churches throughout the city that are in residential neighborhoods. They've installed them, and what we've worked out with them, it's different in different locations. They will dim the sign in the evenings. One church we worked with, we actually gave them a special exception. They agreed to shut it off, I believe it's at 8 at night. So they don't run it overnight, they just run it to a reasonable hour.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Are there any additional questions? Okay. Without any further questions, I'll accept the motion.
Councilman Grassett, I'd like to make a motion to set the public hearing on the proposed changes to Section 1529B and 1540A5 of the Municipal Zoning Code to restrict the sale of adult use cannabis to C2 highway commercial zoning districts with maximum of 2 locations on June 25th, 2024 at 7:05 p.m.
We have a motion from Councilwoman Dr. Grissett. Do we have a second?
Councilman Quillen, I'll second.
Councilman Quillen, second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Approved unanimously. Okay, I'm going to move on to old business.
We have none, sir.
We have none. We'll move on to reminder of meetings.
We have none,
We
sir.
have none. Moving very quickly here this evening. We're going to move on to our liaison reports. Going to kick it off with Public Works and Wastewater Treatment Facility from Councilwoman Dr. Grissett.
First, I want to start off by saying last week was Public Works Appreciation Week. And I know we had a Facebook post, and I know that Mr. Mears took care of the Public Works employees, a little lunch treat. But we do want to express our appreciation to those in our Public Works Department, especially since all of us who live in the city of Seaford just participated in Cleanup Week. And that was a heavy week for them, lots of things to pick up and take care of. They've also gone now and started doing the limb pile pickups because people were asked not to put out limbs and yard waste during Cleanup Week, so they are picking up that. They help participate in setting up for the Memorial Day event by putting barricades there, as well as performing all of their routine tasks. As far as the wastewater treatment, they also help participate in Cleanup Week. And they have been troubleshooting some issues that they're having with a pump and repairing some broken items, and also doing some study samples this week as required from the state. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Moving on to Police and Fire, Vice Mayor Dan Henderson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Both the Police Chief Kraft and Fire Chief Wilson have presented full reports, and I'll go through most of it, but not all of it. They are lengthy reports. Total responses for 2024 is 2,320 calls for an average of 15.5 per day. Significant incidents, May 21st, out of the city, there was a vehicle crash with entrapment on O'Beer Road, and on 5/26 there was an assist to Station 71 for a barn fire on Airport Road. Ambulance B87 is out of service. The next training is Wednesday on June 5th for aerial master stream evolutions. Under EMS, the two new LifePak 1000s, 1000S automatic external defibrillators, hard for me, to replace the aging units. They were purchased recently. They provided updates to the crew for new operations of Tidal Health Nanticoke emergency room procedures. With community events, there were 52 events to date, with a total of 607 personnel participating, and a total of 991.43 hours. We appreciate the fire department displaying the flag on ladder 87 yesterday at the Memorial Day ceremony. It's always nice to see the stars and stripes flying above the event. And this year it was closer. Usually it's across the street, but I think that's a nice modification to have it on this side of the street. So very, very thankful for that. Report from the police department, Chief Kraft, as always, gives the multi-column reports so that they can, the incidents can be compared with previous years. The 2024 column on the left is displayed for totals. The other numbers are actually for the period between May 13th and May 26th. Under all crimes, there was 156 incidents, 12 felonies, 42 misdemeanors, 8 violations, 1 civil, and 93 other, for an 83% clearance rate. And that is generally in line with previous reports, maybe a little bit down. Under additional crime data below, there were a total of 26 complaints, which excludes shoplifting, for a 42% clearance rate, which is about the same as the last period, within a couple of points. 11 of those are pending active, 4 are pending inactive. And I forget the abbreviations on the others, 5, 3, 3, and 0. They're so.
I'll be wrong.
Don't even try.
I don't want to misspeak. Under drug complaints, under drug crimes, there were 9 total drug crimes with 8 arrests and 1 juvenile arrest, 2 search warrants. In traffic, there was 240 traffic contacts, resulting in 131 citations and 30 warnings. You're seeing that traffic contacts have risen over the last few periods, actually several periods, with more officers on the street and cadets also writing citations. You're starting to see more of this happen. 4 DUIs, 2 crash-related, 26 total crashes with 1 injury accident on Sussex Highway and Norman Eskridge Highway, 8 non-reportable and 17 reportable. 1 hit and run on private property, and 1 alcohol-related crash. I'll mention the crime view chart. You can blow that up if you want to get a little bit more in-depth information on the highest number of incident days and the times of day that are most active. I will leave you with the significant events. It's especially long this period, so I won't go through any of them. I'll let you review those at your leisure. Under administration, the chief attended the director, staff, liaison, and council meetings. There was a crime intel meeting. the Sussex County Police Chiefs meeting. There was cadet swearing in ceremony, which I was proud to be a part of. And actually 2 crime intel meetings between the chief and the deputy chief. And the police chief's accountability and advisory board meeting, which I missed, and I would like to thank Councilman Quillen for chairing that meeting in my absence. Under community events, Seaford Police Department's Citizens Police Academy graduation ceremony is tomorrow night, so come out and celebrate with those folks who have worked really hard over the weeks. I did attend one session, but my schedule has prevented me from attending anymore, but I will be in attendance tomorrow evening. There was a Back the Blue caravan event, which the patrol and cadets attended on the 16th, and there was children and family first food distribution at Chandler Heights on the 16th, which the cadets participated in. Lots of training going on, and under the cadets, this just goes to show you the level of involvement that the cadets have. It's not just walking up and down the streets. They are completely involved in the community. So I'll just read this out for the record. Between 5:15 and 5:24, the cadets conducted misdemeanor arrests, obtained arrest warrants, and transported prisoners to SCI to assist patrol. They handled minor complaints, bicycle patrols, pedestrian stops, assisted with community events, and assisted CID with the inventory of recovered stolen plants from Lowe's. Additionally, Cadet Morales assisted CID and SRO Wingate with translating on multiple occasions. So that just goes to show you how valuable the cadets are. The last is the total criminal arrests and their breakdown between 2020 and 2024, the breakdown between adult arrests and juvenile arrests. And that concludes my report.
Thank you very much, Vice Mayor. I'm going to move on to Administration and IT, Councilman Orlando Holland.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I attended the DMEC Finance Committee meeting, and Governor's Grant Phase 4 plan is being reviewed, and IT is scheduling switchgear upgrades, and installation of security cameras at the electric department is in the works, and they attended various other events and meetings, and all the work is routine. And that concludes my report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman Holland. Moving over to Electric and Councilman Mike Bradley.
Thank you, Mayor. 2 employees from the electric department assisted with the city cleanup each day, and we really appreciate their efforts along with the others in the community. The electric department worked in Bel Air on primary conduit and pulling primary and secondary wire. They did monthly checks at the substation, trimmed trees on North Street, put up Memorial Day flags, put the Hometown Hero banners down Nylon Boulevard, which I especially enjoy because my father and my uncle are placed there. And had a meeting with the city engineer about the Dolby North project. For a slight sidebar, I'm still working with Adopt a Block. Went out collecting trash not long ago, and it was very humbling to have one of the neighbors come up to me and offer their trash can for me to put the trash in when I was done picking up. And kind of made it worth the effort. So that concludes my report.
Thank you, Councilman Bradley. And moving over to Code and Parks and Recreation, Councilman Alan Quillen.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll start off with the Code Department. There's been 159 permits issued in 2024 so far. 1,796 rental licenses have been issued. Rental license renewals have been sent and are being processed. Rental inspections are being scheduled and completed. Doing routine inspections on ongoing projects. Doing violation inspections throughout the city as well. The large projects that are still existing, and the update on the status on there, Muirfield 1, Phase 3, permits issued to Ryan Homes for 51 lots. East Park Business Center, final building under construction. Bel Air Single Family, Danfield Drive, construction started on homes on the first 10 lots. First 6 lots have been completed. The Western Sussex Business Campus, working on installing the exterior walls at this point. Nylon Capital, this is a big question everybody's been asking, when's the demolition going to start? Okay, so everything's in process. I think you will see in the next couple of weeks where where the old bank was, where Butler's is, that will be the start of the demolition there. Taylor Professional Center, site work permit has been issued. Contractor has started on the site work. Moving over to Parks and Rec, some highlights there. Of course, the Parks and Rec was responsible for the grass lot cleanup on City Hall for Friday Night Live concert. I attended that concert, and I was very pleased to see the turnout of people that came out for that. I think it's going to be growing in the future, so I encourage everyone, especially my colleagues sitting up here, to come out to the next one. It was a very good time, good entertainment. So I'm very pleased that something like that in the city is happening, and we've got to give kudos out to Seaford tomorrow.
And the new location is very nice
Yes.
to have it there.
Yes.
I mean, it really is. It made a difference.
It did. Going back to parks, completed the first application of fertilizer on the athletic fields, removed a log from the tax ditch at Industrial Park to help with drainage. There's a drainage issue going on there, so Director Katie is working hard to try to get that corrected there as well. Prep the Kiwanis Park for Memorial Day service, which I attended yesterday. Very humbling service, and was well attended to as well. So they're also continuing the prep of athletic fields for leagues and tournaments. Week 6 and 7 of the youth soccer went off the last couple of weeks, and with championship games coming up this Saturday. And there's a pickleball for youth coming up here, which should be starting on Thursday evening out to the tennis courts there at the high school. And so far they have 7 youth registered for that. Met with a new adult soccer, or not adult soccer, a football team, okay? And we might possibly be having a adult league going on our football fields here. So that was very promising to hear something like that. Also, they're working with 3 pre-grant applications to the Outdoor Parks, Recreation, and Trails Grant Program. Attended the monthly Seaford Tomorrow organization meeting and partnered with Restoration Community Church to host a movie night in the park on July 26th. That is my report. It has been submitted.
Thank you, Councilman Quillen. I do want to mention 2 things before closing. Friday night, Seaford High School graduation. Very excited to see some of our local Jays close one chapter and start a new one. Congratulations early to all of our local graduates, not just Seaford, but everybody in the area. Very excited for your future. And yesterday, Councilman Quillen, you hit on it. It was a very humbling experience. Memorial Day in the park. It was good for me to see a lot of youth there yesterday. A lot of kids were in attendance, and there's something about that day and driving through downtown, seeing the hometown heroes on the banners. It makes you, I don't know about you, but it makes me proud to be of my hometown. So just a good day all the way around. Want to remind council we have an executive session after this, and I want to accept the motion to enter into executive session.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
All right, I got a motion from Councilman Holland. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second from Councilwoman Dr. Gressett. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, good night, everybody.